Expected to approve a similar measure in just a few moments. And President Bush has cut short his weekend at Camp David to return to the White House, where he'll be holding a news conference to discuss the day's developments later this afternoon. ABC News will carry the President's news conference live, and we'll have a complete wrap-up this evening on World News Saturday. I'm Carol Simpson in Washington. Good afternoon.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Today on ABC Sports, the 30th year of the Professional Bowlers Tour rolls into action with the AC Delco Classic. Then the pool party down under continues as the world's best compete in the International Meet of the Year. It's all today, beginning next with the season premiere of the Professional Bowlers Tour, followed by the World Swimming and Diving Championships.
The following is a special presentation of ABC Sports.
As we begin our unprecedented 30th year, let's look back to 1990. We saw a lot of action provided by the old and new of professional bowling, like Jim Pensack winning at Atlantic City. Brian Voss won at Sunrise, Florida. And Leto Monicelli won a back-to-back Player of the Year honor because of wins like this over Chris Warren, who was the runner-up. Chris losing twice here as we look back, but he won 3 overall. Pensack winning the national championship in Toledo. Warren finishing second. Ron Palumbi won at Indianapolis, the United States Open. And in Akron at Firestone, Dave Ferraro, the champion. ABC Sports presents live in its 30th season, the Professional Bowlers Tour. Today from Torrance, California, it's the $175,000 AC Delco Classic. In our first game, 3-time champion, 33-year-old Harry Sullins of Detroit will face the PBA's new president, Marc McDowell of Madison, Wisconsin. That winner will take on the PBA's career earnings leader, Marshall Holman of Medford, Oregon. In the semifinal game, second-seeded Walter Ray Williams Jr. of Stockton will be trying to earn his first title in 4 years. And our tournament leader is 6-time champion David Ozio of Vidor, Texas. That's our outstanding field of finalists for today's Professional Bowlers Tour telecast. Return to Southern California, where the weather is back to normal. Full sunshine at about 65 degrees. Hello again, I'm Chris Schenkel. When we started our college football telecast in past years, I'd always say, what a way to spend an autumn afternoon. I can say the same thing today as we begin our 30th year of Professional Bowlers Tour telecasts, because here at Marina del Rey, I'm aboard the 55-foot yacht owned by P.J. Carroll, who sponsors a few of our professional bowlers on tour. Well, we're going to tour 16 cities again, and the best professionals in the world will have an opportunity at hopefully their share of the $3 million in prize money. The winner's share averaging $36,000 this year. For 17 years, my colleague has been a 17-time champion. He's been a great first mate. Today a landlubber. He's at Gable House for the finals of the AC Delco Classic. Let's go to Nelson Burton Jr. right now.
Thank you, Captain Chris Schenkel. You look quite at home on that yacht. We're at the Gable House in Southern California for the opening telecast of the 1991 season. Capacity crowd on hand, and we're only moments away from the first shot of the season. Now, today's field is an excellent field. 5 champions, and 4 of those 5 players have rolled 300 games earlier in the week. But the key player is Marshall Holman in the number 3 spot. Bowling's all-time leading money winner has not won in 2 years, so he's out to win today. Now let's look how the PBA players are attacking the championship pair. There's oil down the lane, 7 feet, then 16 feet, then 24 feet, and all this oil is dragged down to 45 feet down the lane, a long oil pattern. This allows the player to play an extreme outside line around the first arrow, hook the ball in the 1-3 pocket. Chris Schenkel, that's the type of shot that Pete McCordick shot 300 on in 1987. I look for high scores, and there's a lot of money at stake.
That's right. $1,000 to the winner with 19,000, 10, 8, and 6. And should we have a perfect 300 games throughout the year, True Value Hardware Stores, another $100,000 in Bow. I hope it happens this year.
Well, I think it will, Chris. The players have been sharp. The last 4 or 5 tournaments of 1990 were very high scoring. This week, no exception.
All right, Harry Sullins, who is often called the legend from Detroit, Michigan, a neat guy, 33 years old. He's won 3 titles. He's going against Marc McDowell of Madison, Wisconsin. First shot, the finals. Well, Bo, interesting spare there. He'll have to try and cover here in our very first frame.
A 3, 6, 9, 10, one of the toughest spares in bowling, and Harry Sullins will try to swing the ball real wide out to almost the right-hand edge, take out the 3 and 6. The key pin is the 9, the back pin.
All right, a little lesson. A little tip, and Bo will have a tip a little bit later on power play, etc. And Bo, of course, will have his tip of the week on each of our 16 Winter Tour telecasts and 8 more in the spring and summer.
Long season, 1990 PBA Tour on ABC all the way up till the end of July, 1st of August. Now the new PBA president, Marc McDowell.
28 years old. With that high hit today, he's looking for his 3rd professional title. West Texas State, his alma mater, Sullins Vincennes University.
Marc McDowell, a very strong style. 5 steps, very short, medium-high backswing, good knee bend, drives right underneath the ball, tremendous wrist action, hits the line, very solid, has improved every year on the PBA Tour, Chris.
Okay. So now the first frame for each of our professionals has been completed, both marking with spares. It is all even. Meanwhile, off to the right, practicing, and you'll see him a little bit later. In fact, he will meet the winner. There's the pinfall of a practicing Marshall Holman of Medford, Oregon.
Marc McDowell's averaged 224 to qualify 4th for the championship round for 42 games. Full fingertip grip, just the tip of his fingers in the ball, thumb buried all the way, wrist cupped, nice steady style. Second frame.
So we have another high hit, leaving the 9 pin on the left lane for Marc McDowell.
You see the low profile shot. McDowell drifting high, breaks up the split, leaves a very simple spare of the 9 pin. And these players were striking like crazy right before we went on the air. It's amazing when they go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're on. All of a sudden that spot on the lane looks awfully small.
It does. All right. There is pressure. And it's amazing how often I'm asked, though, by television viewers just what the tension is like here when we go on the air and just how the players react to it. I can tell you each time they step on the approaches Harry Sullins is doing, it's like standing over a 50-foot putt for 100 grand.
You bet.
Well, that's the first crossover of the year, and Harry will take it.
Harry Sullins gets a great break there, and as we see, has a 1-pin lead through 2 frames. Sullins with a great big hook ball. He plays a lot of curve on it. When he gets around the pocket, he gets red hot. Of course, when he loses it, he can struggle.
Very important double for Harry Sullins. He now takes an 11-pin lead over Marc McDowell. And the fact that he is the newly elected president of the PBA has nothing to do once he steps on the approach. All of the many PBA members, Bo, just want to defeat whoever the opponent is.
That's for sure. Marc McDowell, the youngest president ever, PBA, 28 years old, nice fellow, good man to be at the helm.
Right. All right. right, so for Marc McDowell, it's his first strike. Earlier, we asked him what changes in preparation had he made for 1991.
Well, the only changes in my preparation were bringing my wife, Patty, along with me. I think it's going to help me from a morale standpoint. And my goals for the year, I want to do a good job as the PBA president, and I'd like to win a title and make that next step up and win $100,000 this year.
Well, he has the ability to win more than $100,000. He needs a little confidence, Chris, and he'll be a big star for a long time.
Hoping for a strike to keep the match closed. And, Bo, you can give us a tip right here. How do we convert that baby? 3-6-9.
The 3-6, he has to get the ball over here on the right-hand side of the lane and slide that 3-pin over into the 7. The ball will take out the 6-pin. Not a really, really tough shot. He'll give it a good go.
He did give it a good go, but he left the 7-pin standing, so it is an open frame for Marc McDowell. We'll return to Torrance, California after this.
Just a reminder, proper maintenance with AC Delco parts can significantly reduce premature wrinkles. AC Delco, it's like buying time. This is not what you want in a shave. Now you've got the edge. This is the shave with 6 rich lubricants. This is the shave that reduces irritation. This is the shave. For less irritation, you've got the edge.
We're back again in Southern California. We're in our very first match as we begin our 30th year of the Professional Bowlers Tour telecasts. Harry Sullins of Detroit, who has a 23-pin lead, is up on the right approach. He's going against Marc McDowell. Double working. And now Harry has a 33-pin lead early in the match. We asked Harry what his goals were for this season.
Well, Bo, this year I've tried to put a little more mental concentration into it. Last year wasn't very good. I had a strained shoulder most of the year, and I'll take a little better care of myself this year, work out a little more. Take some medication, and hopefully I can have a real great year this year.
Okay.
Off to a good start. 33-pin lead, can make it 4 strikes in a row, and 43.
Okay, there were 9 300 perfect games here this week. In our field of 5, 4 of the bowlers had perfect games. The only one that didn't in our field was Harry Sullins, whose high was 289.
Not bad. Started with 10 strikes in a row. Now McDowell, who's really backed up through 5 frames, has to get some strikes going. Hasn't even been close. He's been high on every shot except for the 3rd frame.
So it is a lonely 2-pin on the right lane for Marc McDowell.
From the overhead, Marc McDowell with a nice smooth approach is a little bit lost out there on the lane, sends it wide. It's a little light, the head pin just sliding to the sideboard, doesn't get back quite enough to get enough of the 2-pin, an easy spare. He'll still trail by 43 through 5 frames.
Marc was the 1986 Rookie of the Year, and in that rookie year he won $51,285. It's a record that still stands. Last year he earned nearly $70,000 without a victory. He has 2 championships in his 6-year professional career.
Marc McDowell is taking a pretty standard way of attacking the lanes here, especially on the left-hand lane, which hooks a little bit more. He'll start almost in the middle of the approach. He'll slide about the center, and then he'll roll the ball out around the first arrow. So we'll see how he does it. He drifts a little bit left.
There's no breaks today, Nelson.
Chris, that was his best shot by far, as he kind of wryly smiles at the crowd. Leaves a solid 9. He got the ball wide, got it solid in the pocket, but the ball carried right through the 1, 3, 5, and chopped the 9. Watch the action of the pins. The ball hit the 1, 3, goes into the 5, and normally would deflect off into the 9. 3-pound, 8-ounce pins, but that urethane ball just chopped him up. Bad break.
Okay. There is Patty McDowell. Very recent bride. Pretty lady. Now Harry Sullins, whose brother Bruce has a trophy shop in Roseville, Michigan. Leaving a 3.610, Harry likes to say he's not only from Roseville, he's from Ann Arbor and also Detroit. And his favorite colors, bowed figures, maize and blue of the University of Michigan.
Although he went to Vincennes University in Indiana and bowled on the team for 2 years. That's where he said he got the experience to come on the Pro Tour. 3.610 spare.
Oh, ho, ho. Wow.
Quite unusual. Harry Sullins switches balls so that he can get a little more control. This has never happened on ABC before. Watch the ball hook so much that it actually cuts the 6-pin out between the 3 and 10 pins. I've seen it happen in tournaments, but never before on ABC. What a strange turnabout here as Harry Sullins opens the door for Marc McDowell. Let's see how it affects Sullins here, 7th frame.
Oh, yes. Like the true professional that he is, you can never make up for an error in bowling, but you can sure make a comeback like that strike. We'll come back soon.
Once you crash, you can't stop. You hear 'em, you grab 'em, you want 'em, you crunch 'em, you crunch 'em. Once you pop up, Pringles. Can't stop, I can't stop, no, I can't stop, can't stop, can't stop.
Pringles. 5 years ago, Ford passed Chevy in light truck sales, and we've never looked back.
Ford trucks, the best, never rest.
We just kept working to make our trucks better. We added new engines, new transmissions, new interiors, even new trucks. And our sales lead got even wider. In fact, our lead over Chevy is twice as wide as it was last year. Ford trucks, putting the competition farther behind us every day. More people are driving the best-built, best-selling American trucks than ever before.
Matt Biondi duels with Tom Jaker in the 50-meter freestyle. Plus, Janet Evans goes for gold as the World Swimming and Diving Championships continue next on ABC Sports.
We're in our very first match of the AC Delco Classic. Harry Sullins is leading by 27 pins. And we'd like to remind you that for those of you except on the West Coast, President Bush has left Camp David to return to Washington, where he will hold a special press conference. And ABC News will be taking you there live, along with an update of all the day's events. So, stay tuned. Now Marc McDowell, as a result of an open frame by Harry Sullins in the 6th, has a chance. The lead cut from 43 to 27. Has a spare working. That's the way to start. Only a second strike of the match. Here's Bo.
Thank you, Chris. Marshall Holman, players are struggling a little bit out there playing outside line. What's your game plan?
Well, you know, I played outside the whole week, Bo, but it looks like I'm going to move in just a little bit, try it a little deeper inside and see what I can do.
Marshall Holman moving in, making a little change, Chris. He should be tough in the next match.
He's always tough, Marshall Holman. Okay, now here's a big shot for Marc McDowell. He has a strike up in the 7th, shooting in the 8th. He can cut Harry Sullins' lead to 17 pins with a strike right here. So the game is on. Yes, Bo.
Well, I never thought McDowell would come back in this match. Sullins just had him buried, and all of a sudden he gets that open frame there in the 6th frame. Marc McDowell has exceeded the shot clock 25 seconds and has been fined $1,000 for that last shot. We'll update you on the PBA rule right after the shot.
Of course, if he can go on and win 3 more matches, he can win 36. So the 1,000 it would be academic. However,
quickly, the PBA rule. The rule allows a player 25 seconds to make a shot from the time his opponent leaves the lane or his ball comes back. McDowell fiddled around, took a little extra time, went past the 25-second clock, immediately was fined $1,000.
Now Sullins with that double. He's shooting in the foundation 9th. Here we go, 3, 6, 7, 10.
3, 6, 7, 10. We've seen that split before, except it was Marc McDowell had it. And once again, we were informed that the PBA has changed the rule from a $1,000 fine to $100 the first offense, $1,000 the second offense. So McDowell is only out $100, and he has a good chance of winning this match. Right now for Sullins, in the 9th frame, the 3, 6, 7, 10 split.
Nelson, do you think a financial fine is better than losing a frame or 2? What's your feeling?
Well, the PBA seniors fine the players 5 pins if they go by the 25 past the 25-second rule. I'm more for a financial fine. I hate to see the outcome of the game affected by that. As you see, Sullins just sliding the 3 behind the 7 in a critical shot, and now he has fallen to a position where he can drop behind in the match. McDowell would be within 1 pin, 9th frame, if he strikes.
Imagine that, trailing by 43, persistence, coming back now to within 1 pin of the lead, and it's late.
As you see him come in light, he has that 5-pin just jumping all over the place. He paralyzes it. The head pin comes back off the sideboard, and Marc McDowell has put himself in position where he can actually lock out Harry Sullins. He trails by 1. He can take the lead with a strike in the 10th. If he strikes here and strikes in the 11th, he can shut out Sullins. Nothing Harry Sullins can do to stop McDowell if he throws 2 more strikes.
A president, Bo, of any organization should set the pace, show the lead, and Marc is really doing that right now.
Well, he's setting the pace in the match as he leads by 9, can shut out Harry Sullins with another strike here and a good count of just 2 pins, and obviously he's already setting the fine pace in the PBA as he's been set back $100 so far.
Nervous? You bet. Tremendous comeback. Patty's happy, so is Marc. Harry Sullins just having some tough breaks in the 6th frame and then again in the 9th.
Well, it all changed around when Harry Sullins got that completely wide open split in the 6th frame and just opened the door for Marc McDowell, chopping the 6-pin out of the 3-6-10 combination. Now McDowell just needs 2 pins to go on to meet Marshall Holman in the 2nd match.
You better hurry or there'll be another fine, taking a lot of time. McDowell will move ahead. He will go against the 21-time champion, Marshall Holman.
Double, double your refreshment. Double, double your enjoyment. Oh, no single gum double freshens your mouth like double mint gum. Double, double your refreshment. Double, double your delightment. Oh, no single gum double freshens your mouth like double fresh, double good. Come on and double it. Double mint gum.
There's no single gum like it.
3 hours, 9 minutes. May I ask what you're doing? Timing tiny time pills.
Excuse me?
Well, this morning when I woke up, I talked like this and like that, so I took a Contact. So? Well, Contact has 600 tiny time pills that last 12 hours, up to 3 times longer than ordinary cold medicine. There's a whole day's work in every Contact. 8 hours and 30 seconds.
Look, if you're going to time the tiny time pills all day, when are you going to do the work?
Right. You time it.
There's a whole day's work in every Contact.
Kuwait is now closed.
The drama behind the diplomacy.
Where's Kate? There's been a complication.
Tony Dennison, Linda Pearl. Undercover premieres tonight at 9, 8 Central.
Moses Prey is a con artist.
My name is Prey, Kansas Bible Company.
Precious Addie Loggins is along for the ride.
Her name ain't Precious.
They'll do anything to take a buck.
Shooting at us! Keep going!
Ryan O'Neal and daughter Tater.
You know what that is, Scruples?
No, I don't know what it is, but if you got him, you sure bet they blind somebody else.
Faithful Moon, tonight at 11:30 on 27 WHTF.
A perfect game starts with the perfect equipment, and Bowler Supply is right up your alley. Select from bowling balls such as Vector, Hammer, Thunderbolts, and more. Personalized fitting and custom drilling to improve your game. Check out the colorful selection of bags, shoes, and apparel. For the pool player, rack them up on a new billiard table. Choose from in-stock tables or have one custom crafted to complement your decor. We stock accessories, too. For all your billiard needs and the largest inventory of bowling supplies in Central PA, visit Bowler Supply, 401 Carlisle Avenue, York.
WHTM TV 27, Harrisburg.
The Professional Bowlers Tour. Brought to you by AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time. By Double Mint Gum, the gum that doubles your refreshment. Double Mint, there's no single gum like it. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
Okay, back again at Gable House in Torrance, California, where Marc McDowell of Madison, Wisconsin, came from behind to defeat Harry Sullins, 226 to 196. Capacity crowd here. And we said this is our 30th year of doing the PBT for ABC. And in those years, you get to know and love your colleagues, like Thomas Stanton White, 52 years of age, worked with us for 30 years. Passing away in Phoenix, Arizona, January 8th. To his family, his wife Sandra, his daughter Misha, and son Shane, we send our sympathy, deep regrets. There's Marc McDowell, and of course Marshall Holman, Hall of Fame member of the PBA. He has won more money bowling than any of the professionals, $1,496,201. He hasn't won in 3 years, but he'll try right here against Marc McDowell, Bo.
McDowell buoyed by that comeback. Let's see how he does in the second game.
Need a few breaks in the game, don't you? And he has his cheering section here. There is Jack Cogan, who owns Gable House. He was off to the right of Mark as we looked on.
Holman has averaged .259 during the week for his 3 games on the championship pair. That's almost .780 for 3 games. Let's see how he does now.
Crossing over and leaving the 3-6, bringing a smile from the veteran of 17 years, a PBA professional, the flamboyant Marshall Holman with the quick steps to the line, a wonderful slide, and he sort of uses the full approach.
Uses all 17 feet, and the only holdback to Holman's great career, and he's bowling's all-time leading money winner, and obviously one of the most talented, as you see the 3-6 combination, is his record on TV. He struggles.
Okay. You'll always know how Marshall Holman feels about a shot, or about his performance.
Well, you talk about the struggling of Marshall Holman, who's done just about everything in bowling. In one streak in 1983, in 15 championship rounds, he won 1 game and lost 15 matches. And so, once again, he's in a little bit of a slump. You see Holman using the full approach. He'll slide around the middle, play the shot right around the second arrow out to almost about the 5th board.
It's more like it. And now there are some Holman rooters in the crowd. Here now is Marc McDowell stepping up to the line, hoping to double here after his victory over Harry Sullins. Okay, with that double, the lead. A leader in all of sports television has been ABC's Wide World of Sports. That'll resume next week, but today, which will whet your appetite, the World Swimming and Diving Championships from Down Under. Tom Yeager battles Olympic gold medalist Matt Biondi, the 50-meter freestyle, plus you'll see the USA's Janet Evans and Germany's Michelle Gross trying to capture gold. Wide World next week. Tell you more about that later.
McDowell, 2 strikes in a row, has struck 5 consecutive times on this left lane. Would like to open up a 20-pin lead over Marshall Holman.
So again, a 3-6-10.
McDowell bothered a little bit by actually a piece of machinery just rattling in the back end, Chris. Maybe a pin is stuck between what they call the shaker. That's where the pins fall in off the back of the lane, and often a head of a pin will get stuck by the sideboard, and it's bothering Marc McDowell, and I don't blame him. He should take a break. They've straightened it out now. He's going for the 3-6-10 to maintain his lead.
Body English by the newly elected president of the Professional Bowlers Association. Here now, Marshall Holman has a strike up. He could take the lead right here. Confident bowler. 3-pin lead now by Marshall Holman.
Interesting to see what Holman does when you see this classic style of his 5-step delivery. Nice level shoulders, almost perfectly flawless arm swing, tremendously smooth release with terrific power. He's combined it for so many years to become bowling's all-time leading money winner. But this year, Chris, he's in better physical shape and bowling shape than I've ever seen him in. He told me he practiced 2 and 3 hours a day before coming out, and he hadn't done that in a few years, so he could have a real great season.
Oh, no. 7-10, and Mark Roth is in the audience in the house. He's the only one that ever converted the 7-10 on TV.
Mark converted in Alameda, California against Bill Straub, and if things happen bad to somebody in the championship round, they always seem to happen to Holman. As you see, what looks like an apparently great shot, he rips the 5 out, sends it right behind the 7, the 4 cuts in front of the 7, and doesn't take out the 10. Holman in trouble.
So the United States Open champion, the Firestone champion, and now trails by 11 in our second match. We'll return in a moment.
Lisa has no eyebrows. Venus de Milo lacks arms. Chickens have no lips. Why ask why? Try Bud Dry. It's cold filtered for smooth draft taste and dry brew for no aftertaste. So when it comes to refreshment, nothing's missing.
When it was first introduced, Ford Taurus became a tremendous success. Naturally, this made Taurus a target for the competition. But while they've been taking aim, we've been making Taurus even better, with improvements in ride, handling, and performance, and safety advances like a driver's airbag and anti-lock brakes. Because everybody knows it's much harder to hit a moving target.
Have you driven a Ford lately?
The High Rollers are looking to hit the jackpot as they head to Las Vegas. It's the $175,000 Showboat Invitational on ABC's Pro Bowlers Tour next Saturday.
The exterior of the Gable House, where we have been coming for about 13 years. The fourth time it's been the host to the AC Delco Classic. Marshall Holman now. Fifth frame after an open. And he has come back, but while we were away, Marc McDowell, his opponent, came up with a double, striking in the fourth and fifth frames, take a 21-pin lead. But Marshall now can cut that back to 11 if he could strike on the left lane in the sixth. Butch Soper is our statistician today, the surfer from Southern California and a great bowling champion. So in a seesaw battle, Marshall Holman has cut the leads to 11 as we go to Bow.
Thank you, Chris Schenkel. Walter Ray, it's been almost 3.5 years since you've won 17 championship rounds since the victory. Any different strategy today?
It looks like I'm going to have to get a little more aggressive out there and just throw a lot more strikes to my opponents.
Well, that's a very simple formula. Shoot more pins than your opponent, Chris. Walter Ray's a tough competitor. Once he gets back in the winner's circle, he'll win a lot of them. We'll know in this next minute.
Always great to have him on. Here's Marc McDowell. Trying to string three to increase his lead, but he has left the 6-10 on the right lane. Going undoubtedly through a checklist right now, mentally. This is West Texas State graduate, where he was a collegiate All-American bowler. Cross lane, 6-10. All right. Walter Ray sounded ready, though.
Well, Walter Ray, he's a proven winner, Chris, and it almost amazed me when I look at his statistics, and it's been 3.5 years since he's been in the winner's circle. So he's a determined player, and he doesn't give them away. So he'll be a tough semifinal opponent for either Marc McDowell or Marshall Holman.
Square up, 7th frame, second game. McDowell winning the first over Harry Sullins, 221-196. And again, 3-6-10.
Marc McDowell, if he has any little mistake in his game, it's the pull shot. He gets the ball to the top of his backswing, and being pretty muscular in the lats area underneath the arms, he'll tighten that muscle up. His swing will bounce out away from his body, and he'll pull it inside his target. So that's what happened under a little pressure right there. And now he's put himself in a position where if he doesn't spare, Holman will take the lead sitting on the bench.
All right. Nice, precise precision shot by Marc McDowell. We're at Gable House in Torrance, California for the AC Delco Classic.
Got a painful cold? Gotta get relief? Get Alka-Seltzer Plus cold medicine. It relieves painful cold symptoms some others miss with a decongestant, antihistamine, and a pain reliever you can't find in any other leading cold medicine.
The pain's gone.
Ah, I can breathe.
Everything feels better, better, better.
Alka-Seltzer Plus cold medicine. Relief for your painful cold. And now for sinus and allergy relief, try new Alka-Seltzer Plus sinus allergy medicine.
Sometimes, without any warning at all, cars and trucks quitting before their time. before their owners get the most out of their investments. Maybe they don't know about AC Delco, a full line of auto parts designed with proper maintenance to help your car or truck last. Maybe they should. AC Delco. It's like buying time.
Matt Biondi duels with Tom Jaker in the 50-meter freestyle. Plus, Janet Evans goes for gold as the World Swimming and Diving Championships continue next on ABC Sports.
All right, our first of 16 Winter Tour stops. This is the tournament leader, David Ozio of the AC Delco Classic here in Torrance. Next up to meet the winner of the Marshall Holman Marc McDowell match will be Walter Ray Williams Jr. While we were away, as we're running behind our allotted time schedule, Marshall Holman doubled. Leads now by 14 pins. A spare up for McDowell shooting in the 8th.
McDowell, a bad break there. He hit the pocket light, the 1-3 zone, and 9 out of 10 times he'll strike on that shot. The ball hits the 1-3. And actually, the 4-pin comes off the sideboard and paralyzes the 5. Watch the action on the left-hand part of the screen. He hits the 5-pin. The head pin comes back off the sideboard, hits the 4, and stands it back up. A bad break for McDowell, and now he trails by 15.
Nonetheless, maintains his beautiful form as a professional. Been a professional for 6 years with 2 titles. Last year earning $69, nearly $70,000. Career-wise, nearly $300,000.
Right now, Marshall Holman going at a 2:26 pace. Marc McDowell a possible 2:31. So the match is definitely going down to the 9th and 10th frames. Who can throw the strikes in the clutch?
McDowell won the first match over Harry Sullins, 221 to 196. Made a strong comeback in his victory over Sullins. The climb wasn't quite as difficult as this one appears. Now Marshall Holman. 8 years of winning over $100,000 bowling. 6 of them consecutively, leading by 15.
Here's a big shot for Holman. His one big flaw has been national television, a championship round, is inability to put away opponents. He has a chance right now to put away McDowell.
Pumping those arms in the air, the real trademark of this man from Oregon. We asked him earlier about his preparation for the year.
As far as goals for 91, I'd certainly like to make it a stronger year than 1990, which shouldn't be too difficult because last year wasn't very good at all. And my preparation, it's difficult because in Southern Oregon, I really don't have other PBA pros to practice with, so I have to kind of force myself to put the work in, and you know, hopefully I've worked hard enough, and 91 will be a good year.
Needs a spare to lock up the match. Or a strike.
And one better. Marshall said his last year wasn't too good. Well, he got into the Hall of Fame. He won $80,000 in a special bowling tournament. He finished 14th in a golf tournament, going against the likes of John Elway, Dan Marino, Mac Davis, and a host of others.
He's a 4-handicap golfer, but he's the greatest bowler in the world, especially when he gets that fire in his eyes and does a little practicing. It's showing up now. For years, I've watched Marshall Holman have all that talent come down the 9th and 10th frames and hand it to somebody. He's just shut out Marc McDowell.
Okay, Marshall Holman has eliminated the president of the PBA, Marc McDowell. He'll now go against colorful Walter Ray Williams Jr. Bo examines 2 contrasting bowling styles which pay similar dividends. Here's Bo.
8AC Sports Bowling Tip of the Week is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
On the Professional Bowlers Tour each week, we see various styles. But the players do have one thing in common. They take their natural game and develop it to the maximum of their ability. Let's take a look at Pete Weber. Pete takes the full approach, the high backswing, and tremendous speed on the ball. Another great player, Wayne Webb. Much shorter approach, not quite as high a backswing, and once again, not quite as much speed as Pete Weber. Now what these 2 players do have in common is what we call the moment of truth out here on the Professional Bowlers Tour. Going into the last step, they keep their swing inside out, drive through with that pivot step, and use tremendous wrist action. Look at Pete Weber. The last step of a 5-step delivery, drives through with the pivot step, the good wrist action, the high follow through. Now Wayne Webb, a much shorter approach and not quite as high a backswing, but going into the last step, he drives through, keeps his wrist behind the ball, gets the solid lift and the follow through. So what are we saying? Take your natural approach, develop your natural game, but on that last step, get that swing inside out, keep the wrist behind the ball, get the good follow through, and you'll maximize your scoring.
Investing in a home means investing in good tools, and you can do it for less at True Value hardware stores. Starting with this Master Mechanic tough plastic toolbox with a pull-out tray and a deep design. Start your tool collection with this Master Mechanic toolbox, just $9.99 in January while supplies last. And during the year, fill it with each month's True Value from participating True Value hardware stores and home centers.
The great Marshall Holman of Medford, Oregon, 10 strikes in his first match of the afternoon, 8 in a row to eliminate Marc McDowell, 256 to 217. Now, sort of the two marquee guys, Bo, go against each other. When you sort of retired from bowling, Walter Ray Williams became the marquee guy with Marshall.
Well, thanks for the accolades, Chris Schenkel. And obviously, Walter Ray Williams, one of the great players. As you see, the next two stops, the Showboat next week, and then in Pinole Valley. And Pinole Valley, we're on a 12 Eastern, 9 o'clock out here on the West Coast. So mark it on your calendar. That's the only time we change. 2 weeks from now in Pinole Valley at 12 o'clock Eastern on a special Saturday on ABC TV.
Well, that's a special Super Bowl weekend on ABC.
160 players started. Average game 213, very high. 222 to make the top 24. Here's some of our other players. Lawrence and Warren, two established names. Dave D'Entremont. Mike Miller, watch for him coming back with the crankin' style. Tommy Baker. Thompson coming out of a little slump. He had 90. Cranker Bob Benoit, 300. John Mazda. Steve Wunderlich. David Ozio, our tournament leaders, doubles partner. John Force, Merrill and Husted, right up there in 16th and 17th place. Pete Weber, Phil Ringener, the Fireball, 19th place. Mark Thayer made the championship round here last year. Hoskins, the cranker up there. Kaufman, the good-looking guy. Brian Voss, 23rd. Frank Ellenberg, the big, strong guy who works with us at ABC, in 24th. And they're still practicing, Chris, here as we get ready for the semifinal match. Walter Ray Williams Jr., a Bowler of the Year, against another Bowler of the Year, Marshall Holman.
This house, Gable House, has a sports sort of history. Jack Cogan, who owns it, is the dad of Kevin Cogan, the Indianapolis car racer. And we always get a lot of people coming to say hello to us, like other racers and car owners, Dick Marconi and Lance Corrin, his wife Susan. So we always have sort of a preview to the Indianapolis 500 when we come to the Gable House.
The bowels of the bowling lanes, Chris, the automatic pin setter. Just remember, there's 10 pins on the lane, but there's always 10 pins in what they call the turret. You see it right there being transferred and ready to go for the next frame. So as we get ready for this semifinal match, it's going to be, it looks like Walter Ray Williams Jr., by being a higher finisher in the tournament, has the choice of starting or finishing. He's now debating whether he wants to start the match.
Now, it's not an optical illusion, those slacks that Walter Ray, he's really getting with it, isn't he, to all the younger people in our audience?
Well, he's quite a personable guy, and
oh, yes.
And quite a, I tell you, he's a tough match game opponent. I always hated to bowl against Walter Ray. He's tough in the clutch, and you can't hardly read him. He doesn't give you much body language out there.
Big and strong at 6'2" and 180 pounds. I always call him the Errol Flynn among the professional bowlers. Look at him. Is that a face?
Has one of the most versatile styles on the PBA Tour. He can play the big hook ball or throw it as straight as a rope, they say. And amazing that that man would go almost 3.5 years without a victory. This man 2 years without a victory, both of them trying to break that drought here in the opening matches of 1991.
Marshall's first shot after that big victory has left the 7-pin.
Holman looks so sharp, though. He had 11 balls in the pocket. He had that, what we call, swishing 7-10 split that even made the match close against Marc McDowell. Watch the action on the left-hand part of your screen. The head pin will hit the 2. The 2 will drive the 4-pin right there, straight back. The head pin goes around the 7, the solid 7. A tough break for Holman to open up against Walter Ray Williams, Jr.
All right, strike for Williams, spare for Holman. ABC's Wide World of Sports, Bo, begins its 30th season next Saturday as Brian Boitano, Debbie Thomas, Liz Manley compete in the NutraSweet World Challenge of Champions. Plus, Wengen, Switzerland for a test of speed on the slopes at the World Cup Downhill and the Athlete of the Year presentation. 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, season's premiere Wide World. And I'm happy to be on the figure skating with Peggy Fleming.
And Brian Boitano, one of my favorites. I really like his act. Now Holman's second frame.
Marshall felt maybe fortunate.
Actually, a little more than maybe. Marshall's had so many bad things happen to him in the championship round. He deserves a few good ones. He had a solid 7 in the first frame bad break, but then he makes up for it. He throws the ball high, almost leaves the 6-7 split, breaks it up, and has left himself a very simple spare. And he'll really be right in the match since he doesn't have an open frame through 2 frames.
This is Marshall's 104th television appearance. I'll repeat that. His 104th. Noises off to the left, and I told you Marshall will let you know how he feels.
Walter Ray Williams Jr., 4-time world horseshoe pitching champion, just set a new record last year of 92% ringers to break the old record set in 1960.
Here in bowling, he leaves the 10-pin. He was 3-time junior world champion as well.
Walter Ray with that full approach, 5-step delivery, tries to keep his swing inside, nice and tight. Good job, sends it wide, and just kind of leaves a half 10. He kind of liked that shot. The right lane hooks just a little bit less than the left.
Ooh. Yes, it nearly found the channel.
Well, both these players have made extensive tours with me, Chris. I took Marshall Holman for 2 years and toured about 40 bowling centers in Florida. Walter Ray, the following year, he went about 20 bowling centers with me. And they both have a little act that when they make the 10-pin, they ask the crowd when's the last time they missed it. And they usually say 5 or 6 years. So not true, but Walter Ray makes that 10-pin that time.
And now back striking as he opened the match. This is Walter Ray's first match of the afternoon. It's Holman's second. If you just joined us, Harry Sullins was eliminated by Marc McDowell, 221 to 196. And then this man shot a 256 to McDowell's 217. Practicing now, you hear his pin fall is our tournament leader, David Ozio, who will meet the winner. A 2.
Holman just spun that ball a little bit. You see him talking to himself, and when he does that, he gets over the top of it a little too quickly. In other words, he starts turning the ball before it's off his thumb. It causes the ball to spin, doesn't bite the lane as much, and obviously doesn't hook as much and get back to the pocket.
All right, Marshall Holman, very close. Third match of the afternoon. Oh, with Walter Ray Williams leading by a couple of pins. We're at Gable House in Torrance, California. Okay, for all of you except on the West Coast, as we speak to you from Torrance, California.
This is a special report from ABC News.
Good afternoon. It's Carol Simpson in Washington. It's been an historic day on Capitol Hill as both the Senate and House of Representatives have voted to authorize a President of the United States to use military force. In this case, the authority goes to President Bush to take whatever action he deems necessary in the Persian Gulf to get Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. The votes prompted President Bush to interrupt his weekend at Camp David and return to the White House this afternoon, where he's about to hold a news conference, which we will bring you live. The congressional votes today were just what the president wanted: congressional authority to wage war, if necessary, on Iraq. Both houses rejected resolutions which would have given economic sanctions against Saddam more time to work. The Senate then voted 52 to 47 to authorize military force, and the House quickly followed suit, voting 250 to 183. ABC's Ann Compton is standing by in the White House briefing room, and the president's men lobbied hard for these votes. One would think that he's pretty happy about what happened this afternoon.
He's happy, and he expected it, Carol. He had told members of Congress that it was in their hands to send the very last diplomatic signal from the United States to Saddam Hussein. This basically, of course, as you pointed out, mirrors the UN language, which simply authorizes the use of any force necessary. But you couple this with a kind of tough talk from Secretary Baker when he was in the Middle East, saying that at midnight Tuesday, the deadline, we've passed the brink, the deadline is passed. It's a very strong statement from the administration. I think the president might also be very pleased with the comments of some of those Democratic leaders, Carol, as they summed up when they proposed their competing resolutions. Both Speaker Foley and Majority Leader Gephardt said, once the vote is over, we all close ranks. We all stand together. We all give a policy in one voice. That's precisely the message President Bush thinks is the only last chance the president has to make any impact on Saddam.
Well, I'm sure the president's going to tell us what he feels about this and what he's going to do, but what does it mean now? We just sit back and wait until the January 15th deadline? Is there any other action the U.S. administration can take?
Well, of course, the president now fully supports the mission of Perez de Cuellar, the head of the United Nations, who has gone to Baghdad, awaiting a meeting tomorrow with Saddam, and any of the other efforts by the European community or by the Arab community. And, of course, he got a long phone call from Mikhail Gorbachev yesterday with some more ideas on how to reach some kind of diplomatic settlement. But, frankly, Carol, the aides here say the president holds out very little hope for any of those diplomatic efforts.
Okay, Ann, thank you very much. We'll be back to you later. We'll go now to Capitol Hill, where Jim Wooten is standing by. Jim, these votes were expected, but how important are they really?
Well, the votes are very, very important, and yes, they are expected. No one was at all surprised by the way the votes went down this afternoon. They're important in this sense. It's the first time, it's the closest, I suppose, in 50 years since 1941, that the Congress has come to actually declaring war. It's also important to note that it's probably the closest vote on the question of war since the War of 1812. And it's also interesting to note that, as Ann pointed out, Democrat and Republican alike, one after the other, all said that when the vote was over and everyone knew how it was going, Saddam Hussein should take no comfort from the narrow victory of the president's resolution.
We've been watching some of the debate here in the studio, and it was some of the most impassioned debate I've ever heard coming from the Congress. Was that your reaction?
Yes, and it was on a very high level. As I listened to it, I only heard a couple of passing references to politics, that is, blaming one's opponent in this debate of being politically motivated. No doubt politics was there, but it wasn't really an overriding factor in today's debate.
Okay, Jim Wooten, thank you very much from Capitol Hill. We'll go back to the White House briefing room. The President of the United States.
Brief statement, and then I'll be glad to take a few questions. First, let me just say that I am gratified by the vote in the Congress supporting the United Nations Security Council resolution. This action by the Congress unmistakably demonstrates the United States' commitment to the international demand for a complete and unconditional withdrawal of Iraq from Kuwait. This clear expression of the Congress represents the last best chance for peace. As a democracy, we've debated this issue openly and in good faith. And as President, I have held extensive consultation with the Congress. We've now closed ranks behind a clear signal of our determination and our resolve to implement the United Nations resolutions. Those who may have mistaken our democratic process as a sign of weakness now see the strength of democracy. And this sends the clearest message to Iraq that it cannot scorn the January 15th deadline. Throughout our history, we've been resolute in our support of justice, freedom, and human dignity. The current situation in the Persian Gulf demands no less of us and of the international community. We did not plan for war, nor do we seek war. But if conflict is thrust upon us, we are ready, and we are determined. We've worked long and hard, as have others, including the Arab League, the United Nations, the European Community, to achieve a peaceful solution. Unfortunately, Iraq has thus far turned a deaf ear to the voices of peace and reason. Let there be no mistake. Peace is everyone's goal. Peace is in everyone's prayers. But it is for Iraq to decide. Laurie?
Mr. President, does this mean now that war is inevitable, and have you made the decision in your own mind?
No, it does not mean that war is inevitable. And I have felt that a statement of this nature from both houses of the United States Congress was, at this late date, the best shot for peace. And so let us hope that that message will get through to Saddam Hussein.
Have you made the decision in your own mind?
I have not, because I still hope that there will be a peaceful solution.
Mr. President, there's only 3 days left till the deadline, which isn't enough time for Saddam Hussein to pull out his troops. In fact, you yourself wouldn't let Jim Baker go to Baghdad on this date because there wouldn't be enough time. Do you see the possibility of anything happening in these last few days that could avert war, or any chance that he will pull his troops out?
Well, in terms of the chance, I'd have to say I don't know. And in terms of what could avert war, you might say an instant commencement of a large-scale removal of troops with no condition, no concession, and just heading out could well be the best and only way to avert war, even though it would be, at this date, I would say almost impossible to comply fully with the United Nations resolutions.
Sort of a follow-up. Have you heard from the UN Secretary General Harry Sullins today, and is there any hope on that front?
No, I don't know whether there's hope on it because I haven't heard from him today.
Mr. President, are you satisfied that countries in the international coalition like France, Syria, and Egypt will take part in offensive operations in the event of hostilities in the Gulf?
Yes.
The second part of that question, sir, you've said that if hostilities come, it will not be another Vietnam. What kind of assumptions are you making about the duration of a conflict, and can you assure the American people that hostilities would not expand beyond the current theater of operations?
Well, I'm not making any assumptions in terms of numbers of days, but I have said over and over again that the differences between what is happening in the Gulf and what happened in Vietnam are enormous in terms of the coalition aligned against the Iraqis, in terms of the demographics, in terms of the United Nations action, and I am convinced in terms of the force that is arrayed against Iraq. So I just don't think there is a parallel. But I would like to say that I have gone over all of this with our Secretary of Defense and with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and all three of us and everybody else involved in this are determined to keep casualties to an absolute minimum. And that's one of the reasons that I authorized Secretary Cheney to move the additional force several weeks ago.
What about the fire breaks to keep the war from expanding?
Well, I don't worry too much about the war expanding. I have said very clearly, and I'd like to repeat it here, that we will hold Saddam Hussein directly responsible for any terrorist action that is taken against U.S. citizens, against citizens of others in the coalition. I must confess to some concern about terrorism. It's not just that it relates to this crisis, because I've always felt that way, but if it is related to the crisis, if the terrorist acts are related to it, Saddam Hussein will be held directly responsible for that, and the consequences will be on him.
Mr. President, the pendulum of hope has swung back and forth, and you yourself have said you didn't hold out tremendous hope for the last-minute diplomatic efforts. What do you do on midnight on January 15th?
Well, Ann, I can't tell you I know what I'll do on midnight, but I do feel that the action taken by the United States Congress today is a very important step in hopefully getting Saddam Hussein to realize what he's up against. The determination of the American people. I think I have felt that this support is there from the people, but I think now with the Congress, the representatives of the people on record, it makes it much, much clearer to Saddam Hussein.
The polls have shown people support moving fairly quickly after the 15th. Would that be your intention?
Well, I have said, without trying to pin it down or in any sense go beyond what I'm about to say, sooner rather than later. And I got into a discussion. Now, I know that's perhaps not of much help, but I think the worst thing you'd want to do is if a determination was made to use force, to signal when you might be inclined to act. That would not be, that would in my view, put the lives of coalition forces needlessly at risk. Yeah, John.
Sir, I'm sure you're hearing all these scenarios that are coming out, the various these scenarios. One has it that Saddam Hussein will wait until after the 15th to get into the space saving again. Wait until the 16th or the 17th possibly, and then start to withdraw. Say, look, I stood up to George Bush, but I'm willing enough order to avoid war to put my troops out now. Is that the type of thing that it will go into your calculations? Would that be important to you? Would you say, well, let's give the guy a couple of days and see if indeed that scenario is true?
I don't want to give any indication to Saddam Hussein that we will be interested in anything that looks like delay or trying to claim victory. It isn't a question of winning or losing. It's a question of his getting out of Kuwait rapidly without concession. And so I can't, I'd have to know a lot more about the situation, the scenario, as you say, before I could give you a more definitive response. But I don't want anything here to be interpreted by him as flexibility on our part. We have not been flexible. We have been determined, and we are still determined to see that this is, that he is complies fully with the resolutions. Now, Rita raised the question, is it logistically possible to fully comply? At this moment, I'm not sure that you could logistically possible to fully comply, but if he started now to do what he should have done weeks ago, clearly that would make a difference. And I'm talking about a rapid, massive withdrawal from Kuwait. But I still worry about it because it might not be in full compliance. So the standard, full compliance with all these resolutions. Now, some can't be complied with fully before the 15th. One of them relates to reparations. And reparations is a very important part of this. It's a very important part of what the United Nations has done. So I don't think the whole question of reparations can be resolved before the 15th.
Sir, can you explain why sooner is better than later?
Yes, because I think that's been a major part of the debate on the Hill, and I think it is very important that he knows that the United States and the United Nations are credible. I don't want to see further economic damage done to third world economies or to this economy. I don't want to see further devastation done to Kuwait. This question of when was debated in the United Nations, and these countries came down saying this is the deadline, and I don't want to veer off from that for one single iota. And I certainly don't want to indicate that the United States will not do its part in the coalition to fulfill these resolutions. Yeah.
Mr. President, you spoke of the debate. It was a very somber day out there.
Yes.
People talked about the cost of war. I wondered if you watched it and what effect it had on you.
That's a good question. On the parts of it I saw, I couldn't agree more. It was somber, properly somber. It was, I thought, with very little rancor. I thought it was conducted, for the most part, not entirely, in a very objective manner in terms of the subject, and yet subjective in terms of the individual speaking. The compassion and the concern, the angst of these members, whether they agreed with me or not, came through loud and clear. And so I guess I shared the emotion. I want peace. I want to see a peaceful resolution. And I could identify with those, whether they were on the side that was supporting of the administration or the other, or those who were really making fervent appeals for peace. But I think it was historic. I think it was conducted in the best, showing the best of the United States Congress at work. And I keep feeling that it was historic, because what it did and how it endorsed the President's action to fulfill this resolution. When you go back and look at War and Peace, I think historians will say this is a very significant step. I'm pleased that the Congress responded. I'm pleased that they have acted and therefore are part of all of this. But I didn't sense, you know, when you win a vote on something you work hard for, sometimes there's a sense of exhilaration and joy, pleasure. I didn't sense that at all here. I was grateful to the members that took the lead in supporting the positions that I'm identified with. I could empathize with those who didn't vote for us. So I guess my emotion was somber itself. I mean, it was, I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't watch the whole debate. But what I saw, I appreciated, because there was very little personal rancor or assigning motives to the other person or something of that nature. So it was quite different than some of the debates that properly characterize the give and take of competitive politics. Yeah.
Sir, the crackdown was still going on today in Lithuania. What is your answer to those who say that you are putting the Lithuanian and the Balts under the rug because of the Persian Gulf?
Well, I don't think that's true. I've had an opportunity to express myself directly to President Gorbachev on that. We had a statement on it. I have talked to him not just this last phone call, but in others, and the Soviets know our position clearly. So I don't think that's a fair charge at all. Yeah, a couple more. I think I've been a little lengthy here, and we didn't get as many as we want. Not this time, Sarah. Not this time. Okay.
It must now be absolutely clear to Saddam Hussein, perhaps for the first time, that you've got the domestic and the international support you need to use force to drive him out of Kuwait. Wouldn't this be a prudent time to give him an avenue out of this mess, perhaps through something Perez de Cuellar could offer him today?
Well, let's wait and see what I talked to, what Perez de Cuellar, how those talks go. I talked to him beforehand, and he is properly, I would say, confined to operating within the UN resolutions. He must do that. We're talking about the United Nations Security Council, and indeed at the General Assembly, the will of the entire world against Saddam Hussein. But I've always felt, Jerry, that the best way is to make Saddam Hussein understand that we have the will to do what the Congress, I think, is now suggested I should do or can do, and secondly, that if force is used, Saddam Hussein simply cannot prevail. And my hope is that the mission of the Secretary General, added to what the Congress has done here today, added to the many other initiatives taken by Arab League people or by EC people, or will convince him. So if your question is, should we now compromise, give him something in order to do that which he should have done long ago, the answer is absolutely not. I'm going to take two more here, and then I really do have to run.
Mr. President, let me follow Jerry's question, because the reports persist that the UN Secretary General, when he meets with Saddam Hussein, will lay out steps beyond compliance with the resolution to include a UN peacekeeping force, to include an eventual Mideast peace conference. Given the demand for absolute compliance, are those within the Secretary General's mandate to advance as further steps?
What were the two?
Well, the two of several that are out there are a UN peacekeeping force, also a timetable for your withdrawal, and then a Mideast peace conference.
Well, my view is that a withdrawal to the status quo ante is not satisfactory, and thus there will have to be a peacekeeping force of some kind. In other words, we just can't, Saddam Hussein will not simply be able to go back to square one if he started that today. There would be there would have to be further compliance with other resolutions, and there would have to be a peacekeeping force. Secondly, I have said I don't want U.S. ground forces to stay there a day longer than necessary. So I'm not troubled with that. On the other question, I simply want to see us avoid what is known as linkage. And I think the American people more clearly see now what I mean by linkage, because they watched the Aziz press conference, where the whole question was shifting, trying to shift the onus away from the aggression and brutality against Kuwait and move it over and try to put the blame on Israel, or try to shift the onus to the Palestinian question. So we have, along with the United Nations, other participants in the UN Security Council process, have avoided linkage. And so I guess I'd say it depends how it's put forward. I myself, at the United Nations, when I presented the U.S. position this fall, spoke up against eventually wanting to see this question solved. And indeed, everyone knows that Jim Baker tried very hard to have us be catalytic in bringing that age-old question to solution. So I just think whatever is done, it has to be done in a way to preserve the U.S. position that there be no linkage.
Would it be fair to extrapolate, then, that you have discussed these additional steps with Mr. Perez de Cuellar and endorsed them?
No, Charles, I read before this meeting here with you all some 5-point proposal, and I can tell you that was not discussed, and I'm not sure it is a proposal, because in this complicated situation in which all countries that want to see peace come about, we hear a lot of things that eventually prove not to have been correct. And I don't know of any 5-point proposal, and just to clear the record, Perez de Cuellar did not discuss with me any 5-point proposal. This last one, Dan.
Mr. President, you have said on a number of occasions there is no secret diplomacy, no backroom diplomacy, no side door diplomacy. Are you prepared at this point, given the conversations you had yesterday with Mr. Gorbachev and the meetings you had with the Soviet ambassador, that there is now still nothing else out there other than the Perez de Cuellar mission that might lead to a diplomatic solution to this?
Well, I'd say that is the main initiative out there right now, and the only one that I know of, although you hear rumors that others may go. President Gorbachev may want to send somebody. The EC may decide after the Perez de Cuellar mission to send somebody, but I don't know of that for a fact certain. And if Perez de Cuellar finds no flexibility, and indeed is faced with the rhetoric that we heard coming out of Iraq as recently as a few hours ago, that I think will be a sign of, I'll put it this way, a discouraging sign, and I think it will frustrate the understandably noble intentions of countries all around the world that would like to think that at the last minute this man would come to his senses.
Follow on that. If the Soviets or the EC or someone else decides they want to send someone to Baghdad after the terrorists to fail our mission, does that in any way tie your hands in the use of military force after the 15th, if these are bumping up against the 15th deadline or slightly thereafter?
Well, I would not leave the door open on slightly thereafter. I think we have sent out an advisory to, certainly to American citizens, and I would enlarge that to everybody that the 15th is a very real deadline. And so I wouldn't, your question, if I answer it, I want to be sure I don't answer it in leaving the door open for any activity after midnight on January 15th, because that is what is called for under the UN resolution set that date. And so I don't want to suggest that one last visit could take place after that and have the approval of the United Nations Security Council, which has stood solidly against that kind of, some would say flexibility, but I would say a breach of the United Nations resolutions. So please, to anyone who might be listening in countries around the world, let me simply say there is no flexibility on our part, and I have sensed none on the part of the other members of the coalition that is arrayed against Saddam Hussein, nor have I found any flexibility, and I'm glad about that, on the part of other members of the Security Council or other countries whose leaders I've spoken to. So the coalition is together. The United Nations is strongly together. I think the vote in the United States Congress today shows that the United States' position is strongly firmed up by what happened in Congress today and by what appears to be the will of the American people, and it's in keeping with how my will and how I feel about this. So let us just pray that that we will make the necessary contribution through the action that was taken today to bring this man to his senses, because it is a critical moment in history. And what the Congress did today was indeed historic, and I will conclude here by once again thanking them for coming to grips with the question, obviously thanking them for backing the position that is so strongly held by so many countries around the world. Thank you all very much.
We've been watching a press conference by President Bush, who interrupted his Camp David weekend to come back and thank the Congress for votes this afternoon, authorizing him to use military force to get Saddam Hussein's troops out of Kuwait. Joining us now from Amman, Jordan, is Middle East analyst Judith Kipper of the Brookings Institute. Judith, listening to what's been happening today, the president now has the support of the international community as well as support from the domestic community here at home. Does this mean we are moving inevitably and closer to war with Iraq?
In effect, the president now has a mandate to go to war, and it would seem to me that it's an appropriate moment to send the Secretary of State to Baghdad to join the Secretary General of the United Nations to see if, in fact, the Iraqis are ready to comply with the United Nations resolution. This is a new development today that we've had Syria saying what it did, and of course the congressional vote. It ought to push the administration and the president in particular not toward war, but rather toward a peaceful solution, because we have indeed begun a countdown, and there is a very somber and very grim mood in this area about what the consequences of war might be.
A grim mood, I would say, here in the United States, comfortably, I think. What are the chances of the Secretary General, without Secretary Baker with him, to make some headway with Saddam Hussein?
I think the chances are good, but it is disappointing to always hear the administration pushing the Iraqis to the brink in terms of they're really asking for, an unconditional withdrawal from Kuwait, which means that there is no talk about how it will be done, when it will be done, X number of troops on which day, and what will come in its place, to make sure that it is an orderly withdrawal and that nothing happens during the withdrawal. And any party that withdraws, makes a military withdrawal, ought to have those assurances, not only for the party that did the aggression, but for those around the area so that nothing happens by accident. It is so volatile that to always do this kind of diplomacy by television rather than quiet talks to make the kinds of arrangements that would make it possible, I think is a mistake, and we're in very serious times now, very dangerous.
Judith, what is Saddam Hussein likely to, how is he likely to react to today's events here at home?
It'll stiffen his backbone. He's going to be more determined not to give in to American pressure.
Okay, thank you very much. Judith Kipper reporting from Amman, Jordan. To recap, it's been quite a day, a very sobering day. We have gotten the House and Senate giving the president approval to use military force in Iraq. The president coming back from Camp David to thank the Congress. And he says this action unmistakably demonstrates the U.S. commitment and determination that Saddam Hussein must leave Kuwait unconditionally and immediately. He did say, however, there is still hope for peace, and we all want peace. We will have a complete report on the day's events as well as the rest of the day's news on World News Saturday. Until then, this is Carol Simpson in Washington. Good afternoon.
This has been a special report from ABC News. This is ABC.
All this week, 27 News is bringing you a look at Operation Desert Shield with exclusive reports from Saudi Arabia. From mail call
I hope that you're doing okay. We're doing fine.
To training exercises, you're seeing local troops in the line of duty. But what lies over the hill as each day brings us closer to a deadline? Join Dennis Buterbaugh from Saudi Arabia for Deadline in the Desert, a 27 News special on the critical days ahead. Monday night at 7:30 on WHTM.
Harrisburg Copiers wants to help your business be more productive with Mita high-performance copiers, the advanced copying system for today's business needs, the pressures of business. Today's copiers must be faster, easier to use, more reliable, versatility and productivity. Mita Copiers, performance and beyond. Harrisburg Copiers stands behind every Mita copier with service and reliability. See the selection of quality Mita copiers at Harrisburg Copiers. Simply the best with 25 years experience.
Catch the Carl Rabbit Sports Report tonight at 6.
We're bringing you the finals of the 9th AC Delco Classic. We've enjoyed our association with them, and here's a man that has bowled in each of the 9, not necessarily in the finals, Walter Ray Williams, Jr. This is a semifinal match. He opened with a strike, had one in the 3rd, and this was his shot in the 4th frame. And he has left the 10 pin. His opponent is Marshall Holman, trailing by 2 coming into this frame. Marshall defeating Marc McDowell in the previous match, 256 to 217. All right, he stays into the lead as we go to Nelson Burton Jr.
Thank you, Chris Schenkel. Tournament leader David Ozio, sometimes not the most enviable place to be, but David, you have 2 great players out there, both bowlers of the year. Which one would you rather bowl for the championship?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I've always wanted to bowl Marshall Holman in a title match and hopefully come out victorious on it. And either player that I'm going to bowl today, I'm going to have to throw 12 great shots in order to beat one of these guys. And I tell you what, I just have to get up and do it.
Well, he looks very confident, Chris, and he'll be a great final match, but the semifinal is still to be decided. Back to you.
David Ozio from Vidor, Texas, tournament leader. Walter Ray Williams getting his 3rd strike of the match, that one coming in the 5th. And now Marshall Holman. If he can strike here, we'll take an 8-pin lead. Once he gets on the approach, as Walter Ray Williams doing a little patchwork, Marshall pulls the trigger in a hurry, like now. So, David Ozio may get his wish. Yeah, we've reached the halfway point of the match. A double and an 8-pin lead for Holman, both.
2 of the great players going against each other, and once again, it's match play competition. Score is really kind of relative. You'd rather win with a 150 than lose with a 250, and we also watched Walter Ray Williams, Jr. putting a piece of tape in his thumb hole. The players are very particular about how much tape they put in their thumb hole. Keep it just right.
And next week, we return to Las Vegas at the Showboat, or the Showboat Invitational, one of the great events.
David Husted, the defending champion, defeated Marshall Holman in overtime last year. They tied in the championship match, 2-frame sudden roll-off. Now Holman, 8-pin lead, can make it 18, 6-frame.
Cheney confirmed that new Patriot missiles delivered